Howdy, and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone, at Will Stone CFB on Twitter, goodbullhunting.com, the Ineligibles podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all that good stuff. Folks, this is a big week, a lot to talk about, get into on this LSU game, a lot to talk about from last week, and get into against Mississippi State. Before we get into all of that, I was just on a lovely podcast called Pigskins and Pageantry. Pigskins and Pageantry. They asked me to come on their show last week. They're an SEC group. They got people from Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and we talked for an hour about just your intro to A&M type stuff, traditions, game day spots, a little bit of Mike Elko and things at the end. Super fun. Some really nice folks over there. So definitely go check that out after you get done with this one and give it a listen. But also on that front, I will be on the Ghost and Friends podcast with my good buddy Ghost, the Ghost of Texas football. Talk about. I'm sure the game that they played this weekend will get brought up, but also on there with an LSU fan to break down this big matchup that we got with the LSU Tigers. So that's tomorrow night. That will be live on Twitter. I think on YouTube, but I think Twitter is the main one. I'm pretty sure it's on both. But yeah, that's tomorrow night. Time TBD, but definitely look for that one. But yeah, so big weekend in the college football landscape. Big weekend for A&M, setting up this matchup of the last two conference undefeateds in the SEC. Whoever wins this game is in pole position in the conference. Both teams have a pretty manageable end to the schedule. A&M has Texas at home. LSU travels to Alabama. I think that's next week after they play against us. So maybe they get a bye week in there. But anyway, that's kind of the last big game for each team. Obviously, if this weekend taught us anything, it's that anyone can play well against you and put up a fight and make things interesting. So very happy to get out of the cursed place that is Starkville, Mississippi with a win. Going to Columbia, South Carolina will be a challenge. Going to Auburn, Alabama will be a challenge. Obviously, LSU and Texas at home, big challenges. But yeah, it's always great to get a road on the win in this conference. Let's go ahead and get into that game. Just a little rundown here. We'll talk a lot about this past weekend, positives, negatives, plenty of both. Talk about Georgia, Texas, of course. Talk about LSU, and then maybe go national at the end with some big picture stuff. But that's right, Pierce. That's right. So there's allegedly a blackout at Kyle Field happening this weekend. I've got the new black Aggies hat. I've got just a black Texas A&M T-shirt. Got the old Sarge one that I'll be wearing to the game on Saturday. Blacked out my profile pic on Twitter, so the fan base is really buying into it. Real quick note on that: it sounds like this is Monday when we're recording this, and for the student ticket pool, they are already halfway through the third deck on tickets. This is going to be a sold out, raucous, very full Kyle Field on Saturday night. That is the night game. Breaking news yesterday coming out that will be the night game this week on at 6:30 on ESPN. As I hit my microphone, TMU at LSU. That's not right. It's backwards. LSU at Texas A&M. I think it's on ESPN. Maybe it's on ABC. And we just posted an article about this, and I'm getting off on a tangent about what channel it's on. It's on ABC, so there you go. Thank you, Ralph. Shout out Ralph in the comments. 6:30 ABC. Don't want to miss it. I'll be there yelling loud from section 420 with my black hat, my black T-shirt, my black towel. So looking forward to that very much. So Mississippi State, it's it's kind of cursed. We talked with Robert about that last week. Uh, Bad things happen when we go play over there. Usually it's the 11 a.m. game that kind of trips us up and throws us for a loop, and weird things, weird bounces, tend to happen. But played an afternoon game over there. Um, Defense struggled out of the gate, tightened things down, and looked a lot better in the second half. Offense came out very efficient, killing it on third down, and then Wigman had an up and down day and kind of struggled as the game went on. But you close out a win. There's I This was one of those games where I think under previous coaching staffs there's a different outcome, and maybe it's still a win, but it's not a win that you feel good about. There's wins that you were like, man, we really played sloppy. They they played really well, and then the ball didn't bounce our way, but it was kind of our own doing, and you just didn't feel good about it, even when you won. But this is one where even in the moment, I even told Brittany this. I was like, this is not even as bad as I feel right now. Like I know, like I was mature enough to sit there and be like, yeah, I don't love what's happening on TV right now in this game, but it's not like when you go back and watch the game, like if you rewatch it, it's not as bad as you probably thought at first. Um, so let's start with the defense. Um, a couple of big runs in the first quarter, which this I do want to give props to Mississippi State. Like this was the first home game that Michael Van Buren had started. All of his starts so far, I think all of his playing time has come on the road. So home start for him. I mean, Dak Prescott was in the house. This team was fired up. This was not just some, you know, oh well, we're 1-5. We're going to go out there and see what we can do. Like they were very excited, very fired up to play this game, and they played really well in for a lot of this game. But Jeff Lebby, offensive guy, spreads it out, runs tempo, motions, different formations, all that kind of stuff. It kind of got us a little bit. We got a little light in the box on defense. We missed some run fits and gave up some explosive runs. Tackling wasn't the best in that first quarter on those couple of plays. Uh, you know, which tackling in the open field is a hard thing to do, but we've seen Dalton Brooks do it. We've seen Marcus Ratcliffe do it. Seen Scooby Williams do it. So yeah, they had a couple misses, and really the only quarter that the Bulldogs ran the ball in well was the first quarter. After that, I needed to go pull up the yards, but you really don't even have to. Like it was, they may have had one run that was over 5 yards, like maybe probably more than that, but like we really stuffed the run after that first quarter. Um, Secondary, on the other hand, uh, not their best day, and it's it's kind of a catch-22 because so far this season we've given up that big play, against Mizzou, the long 60-yard passes, against Arkansas, the 75-yard touchdown pass, catch and run, of course. But this one we kept things in front of us, but even then we gave them way too much cushion. Uh, we we didn't cover well. We turned guys loose, let them get way too much separation. And credit to Van Buren, he made some really really nice throws under a lot of pressure, and really got us. And I don't want to take away from what Mississippi State was able to do, but in the first half, their first drive, they hit the long run, and I felt like we really made them work for it. Like they had to get into, third down, fourth down to convert some of these things. But they get a long run, and then I think we kind of get them to a third down and long, and and Scooby Williams, who had an otherwise great game, things just kind of he kind of gets caught in the traffic on a mesh, and they slip the running back out of the backfield. No one's there, and he just kind of walks into the end zone. Aside from that, they got the field goal, and then we scored with like a minute 30 left in the first half, kick the ball back to him. I'm thinking, okay, it's 21-10. We get the ball after the half. Just, you know, tighten up on defense. Don't let them get anything here. Heck, maybe even get the ball back and get some points. But we let them just go right down. Like, that was the worst drive of the game, in my opinion, was the one before half. Elko was livid in the halftime interview, if you can call it that. You know, he didn't have much to say, but what he had to say was not pleasant about the defense, which it shouldn't have been. That was sloppy and embarrassing to just let them go down the field at will and not even offer up a contest to them. So that was bad. Obviously, it's 21-17. We get the ball at half, and then I believe that's the drive where, you know, Wigman has a couple of you know, the two dropped interceptions. But sorry, let me finish defense. Defensively, we really cranked up the pressure in the second half. You look on PFF, Connor Wigman was pressured 4 times on 26 dropbacks, 15% of the time. Michael Van Buren, we pressured him 20 times. I just had it pulled up. 20 times on, what was it, like 46 dropbacks, I think. Yeah, 20 on 48. So it's in the 40s is what the pressure rate is. 20, 48. Yeah, 41%. That's bad. Like, we did the same thing to Brady Cook in Missouri. This defensive line and really the even the linebackers can really, really get after the quarterback, and not just on third downs. Like, obviously third downs, they're very, very good at getting after the quarterback. But even on first and second, they really cranked it up in the second half, and that showed. PFF shows them batting down 6 passes. It felt like way more than that. It felt like we batted down, you know, like double-digit passes. But you bat down 6, you don't even let them get off, you know, even get past the line of scrimmage. It seemed like B.J. Mays played a lot more at nickel in the second half as opposed to Jaden Hill. Looked better out there, I think. I think Will Lee had a pretty poor first half. Looked better second half. It was hard to tell how, like, if we were covering better because we did apply so much pressure. So I think they did better. It was kind of hard to tell because Van Buren did not have time. And some of the throws he made, like, were just ridiculous on, like I don't want to call it lucky, but he just kind of made some crazy plays. I want to give, you know, so much credit to him as a true freshman playing against a defensive line like this one, having defenders in his face the whole game, and just really showed a lot of poise. Got out of the pocket and scrambled a little bit when he needed to, but super, super accurate. Really, really impressive stuff from him. I'm excited to watch him the rest of the year. They play Arkansas this week at home. That's a game they can win, you know, and get on the board in SEC play. So, you know, I think we forget that's a first-year head coach too. Yeah, they got, you know, demolished by Toledo at home in week 2 or 3 of the season, and, you know, had only won 1 game, and that was against an FCS team. But I think things are coming together for them. Their receivers are impressive. The play calling was very creative and impressive. A couple of guys on defense for them played well, but yeah, big tip of the cap to Michael Van Buren Jr. All in all on defense, just huge credit to Albert Regis. I don't think he gets brought up enough amongst A&M fans, and dang sure not in the national media. I mean, I love that the media knows we have a good D-line. I love Nick Scorton. I love Shamar Stewart. I love Shamar Turner. But Albert Regis belongs right there with any of them. You know, he is really playing at a high level right now and doing some great things for this team, especially in the run game. But he can put the pressure on too a little bit. So Regis played a hell of a game at defensive tackle. I was telling my dad this watching the game. Like we have so many guys that can get to the quarterback, and they all did it. They all showed it on Saturday. It's not just the starting four. It's not just Scorton, Stewart, Turner, Regis. It's Cassius Howell. It's Ryland Kennedy. It's Rhodes Johnson. It's Torian York, who has been a really effective blitzer the past two games now. And then Scooby Williams. I mean, that's defensive player of the game, in my opinion. I think Elko even said that today in his press conference. Like he won the defensive MVP for this game for A&M. So, and so watching live, I knew he played well because he did every kind of play, like made every kind of play you could think of. He had an interception. He had a sack. He had a big tackle on a 4th and 1 that gave us the ball back. But in the first quarter, he had about 3 plays where he was out of position and, and made some mistakes. Second quarter on, he was flat dominant on defense. And, I've talked about Scooby before, and like he was a guy, that you get him from Florida. Their fans are happy to see him go. They're like, oh, this guy was so bad at linebacker. PFF graded him really low, and he was a young player still trying to adjust from playing on the edge to playing, off the ball linebacker, and he showed the flashes last year. Yeah, he probably missed some reads, missed some plays, was not effective on a consistent basis for Florida last year. But I really didn't know what we were getting with him because you see the talent. He was a top, 50 or so recruit, super talented, very physical player. But it's all, between the ears and learning the defense and the technique and all that. But he is really, really improving. Super excited about him and his future here and this season because coming into the year, linebacker was a sneaky question on this team. We all love Torian York. He's not your prototypical, 6'3", 240-pound linebacker that runs a 4.6. He's, probably a shade under 6 foot. 225, maybe 230. He's pretty built, but not super long arms, not super fast, but very smart, heady player, great captain of the defense, and plays the Mike position really, really well. But who was going to be the other guy? We had Scooby Williams. We had Damian Sanford, who's a young player, true sophomore. You go and get Solomon DeShields from Pitt, who started for them all last season, who's a pretty good player for them. And I'm thinking, man, at least one of these guys should step up and be a serviceable player. We shouldn't be bad at linebacker. Well, it's gone from like, can we get adequate play to now like, hey, we're getting pretty dang good play out of the linebacker spot. And Scooby is, I think he's leading the clubhouse right now at linebacker. Just cannot say enough about how well he played. Damian Sanford still getting in there, making some things happen. He was in on a couple pressures. Like I said, Torian York was in there as well. But, after that first quarter, the front seven really stepped it up and got after the quarterback, shut down the run game, which is what we needed to see in this game. But it's the secondary that is the question. And this was a different kind of offense. Like I think, people talk about secondary like, okay, any team that can pass will give us some fits. But Mississippi State does it in a different kind of way. Like they're more air raidy, 5 wide, don't use a tight end a ton. They kind of did a little bit in our game, at least in line. He was split out some as well. But and then like, the up tempo, the motions, the shifts, that they shift the formation a lot, it felt like. A team like LSU doesn't really do that. Like they're traditional kind of, a modern offense, definitely, but, they're tight end, 3 wide. We'll try to run it a little bit, downfield passes, that kind of thing. But, they're not just kind of motioning guys left and right and changing the formation and running some crazy stuff. It's just like, hey, we have great athletes. Can you cover us? Most teams can't. So, and most teams can't get past their offensive line, which is very, very good. So it's certainly going to be a challenge. All right, so defensively, started out slow, came on towards the end of the game, ended up playing pretty dominant football. In the second half, the only points they got was on the short field after the interception. So I know Elko was pissed. That group is going to get coached very, very hard this week, I would imagine. And playing at home in front of what will be a pretty electric crowd and atmosphere, I think they should start off hot this weekend, but that is TBD. On offense, so Chase Basantis goes down with an injury, I think in the first quarter of this one. That spot is filled by a rotation of TJ Shanahan and Cam Dewberry, and it's like nothing happened, like nothing changed. It's next man up on the offensive line. It's I brought it up multiple times, but it continues to be so dadgum impressive that it sucks that we keep getting guys hurt, and we don't know about the severity of Chase's injury at this point. But like in years past, like one guy going down dooms the group, and now we've had multiple guys, and it's like, nope, we got another guy waiting. He's gotten playing time, he'll be fine. And TJ Shanahan has played right guard, he's played center, he's played left guard all this season, different games, at each one. And this game was left guard, he looked great. Cam Dewberry came in, he looked great. Trey Zune, outstanding at left tackle. Armaje, I thought the center Faiu, I thought Coley Faiu, I thought he stood out a lot more in this game, in a very positive way. Reed Adams, monster. Was kind of They kind of stopped rotating the right tackle. This was mostly Crownover in this game. I think he got all but 8 of the snaps. So maybe that was just the first half of the season to kind of try some things out. Maybe it's him the majority going forward. Maybe they play it by the matchup, but he was very effective as well. The tight ends blocked well, but the run game struggled to get going at times. And on film, it's not like they're not really beating us up front. I think it is more of a numbers thing. And Elko kind of mentioned that when he's coming off the field, they ask him about defense. He's like, all of it needs to be better. They're playing terrible. But he's like, on offense, I like what we're doing. He's like, they're loading the box. We're hitting some plays in the passing game. That's what we want to do. And, they're props to them. Their corners tackled very well, which is such an underrated aspect. Their secondary guys, all of them, really limited us in the ground game. Now, we had 2 explosives that were both called back on complete phantom penalties. The illegal formation I kind of get, and it's close, but I think it was a penalty. So we send Theo in motion, and when we do that, when he starts moving, Jabray Barber is still setting his feet and picks his foot up and moves it, and you can't have 2 guys move at the same time. So they throw the flag. I get it, that's fine. The other one, the holding, they called on Reed Adams. They show the replay, not holding. They say, oh, we got the wrong guy. It was 78, not 55. He didn't hold either. I mean, if what he did on that play was holding, then every single play, every single rep on the O-line in this conference in college football is holding. I thought that was pretty poor. So, but props to them. They have not been good on defense, and they were kind of the mindset, hey, we are going to make them earn it through the air, and they really sold out for the run. Was successful for the most part, but when we got down to the red zone, these backs run hard. Amari Daniels, Le'Veon Moss, these guys will get it done inside the red zone. So, yeah, I mean, we had three rushing touchdowns, I believe. Yeah, 3. So yeah, they all came down there, within 10 yards. So yeah, love what they're doing. Now let's talk about Connor. I mean, we're 25 minutes in. you guys want to hear about the quarterback because everyone's up in arms. Look, I get it. I mean, you want to see your guy that's, shown some really good ability go out there and play flawlessly for a whole game on the road. And maybe I think we will probably see it in a road game at some point, maybe against Auburn or South Carolina. But he wasn't, he just wasn't perfect on Saturday. And it's it's really really strange to kind of pinpoint why. I don't really know. Sorry, my headphones are messing up. That's okay. Don't need them. Um, but like the way he started the game, I mean, we couldn't get the run game going at all in the first drive, and we have 3 or 4 third downs that he converts through the air. A lot of Jabri Barber. Barber had a really nice game. Caught the ball really well. Had the long one, I think, on the first drive of the second half. Really great game from him. He's really coming on. I think number one Barber. He's going to be a big part of the offense going forward. But so the first drive, Connor is kind of dealing a little bit. He missed the one to Noah. That probably would have been a score from about like 40 or so yards out. Very similar to the one he missed to Noah in Notre Dame that was picked off. Just a little bit high. You want to get it, but a few plays later, hits Noah on a perfect pass in the end zone. Beautiful ball. Perfect. Touchdown. That's great. And then the interception, it looked like he set his feet and everything and had the tight end open. And, the announcer said, thought the ball might have slipped out of his hand. Elko kind of said the same thing. He wasn't sure about that today, but it's sorry, I have my text messages pulled up, and my brother-in-law's texting me about fantasy football. Um, what was I saying? It's a pass you need to make. The pass to the overthrow interception. That's a pass that you should make. The protection was good. You had a clean pocket. You stepped up, and you just floated it, and it got picked off. And that's the play that's got to be cleaned up for sure. The other one, the one that he threw in our own 12-yard line, that's the one where he kind of gets a little happy feet and just let it go super super late to Noah. Noah's on a little stop route, for a little 5-yard pickup, and he kind of got to it late. The linebacker made a great play picking that off, and don't do that. I mean, it's not. I think this is a really good teaching game for Wigman. I think most of all, the point I want to get across, and I kind of said this last week, but it's a point that I take from. There's a guy that covers the Cowboys that I really admire and respect. His name's Brian Broaddus, former scout for the Packers and the Cowboys. Been doing this a long, long time, and there's this thing that we forget about. We're like, oh, this is a really good player. He should just be good all the time. But some of these guys have great ability, but they don't get to play. Like Connor Wigman didn't get to play a lot as a freshman until the end of the season. He started 4 games and got injured for the year last year. He started 2 games this year, got hurt, comes back, makes 2 more. The guy just needs to play football. He just needs to be out there on the field playing, getting reps, getting better, and learning. And you don't learn from being, in the injury tent or, of course you learn in the film room, all that good stuff. But what we need most out of Connor is to be getting live game reps as much as possible, string together, a season full of starts. And then, of course we want him to be great right now, which I think he has shown the ability to do. But, it's something that we got to, that's just kind of what it is right now. it's not guaranteed that he's going to go out there and play a perfect game every Saturday. Can he play well every Saturday? I think so. I think he can do that. I think he should do that. But, it's not a thing of where like, oh, well, you know, Marcel never threw a pick. Connor's thrown four, could have had six. Let's, we need to bench him because Marcel doesn't throw picks. Well, Marcel will be really, really good one day, but at this point, he does not throw the ball like Connor does. That's the way it is. That's not a slight. That's what is best for A&M is that Connor plays, you know, just plays football. It sounds so stupid to say and so simple, but we need the guy to play football. He hasn't done a whole lot of that since he got here, So whether it's injury or a dumbassery from Jimbo not playing him, it is what it is. He's appears to be healthy. We have some good opponents coming up. We need him on the field, and yeah. So I think we do that. Keep him healthy. O-line is blocking for him. Things should be really, really good. And yeah, I'm gonna take a little water break real quick. All right. Thanks for bearing with me, as always. I get a little fired up talking about our quarterback, if you haven't noticed, but that's that's just the way it is. I mean, I think because quarterback is such a divisive position. I mean, you look at what's going on in Austin right now, and really like anywhere else, and even LSU fans. I think Garrett Nussmeier is a very good quarterback against Ole Miss. I mean, he wasn't perfect, but you know, uh, they're like, man, like what's this guy doing? Like making bad decisions and this, that, and the other. But similar to Connor, he hasn't played a ton either. He's another guy that would play in spurts when Jane Daniels was hurt, or play in a bowl game or whatever else, and he would look really, really good when he did play. But what we've seen from him is it's not consistent week to week so far this season. Same thing with Connor. So I think both guys are on a very similar trajectory of you know just loaded with ability and talent, and have good pieces around them, but both need to play more football and just go out there and get reps. And Nussmeier, man, he's coming along and putting it together. We've seen Wigman do it against Missouri, at home. I'm really, really glad this game is at home and not in Death Valley. That'd be a different beast. I may have a different thought on the outcome if that were the case. But it's not. It's at Kyle Field. So let's to put a pin in Mississippi State. It wasn't great. It wasn't the worst game we played. I've seen us play way, way worse under prior coaching staffs, and this wasn't that. This was sloppy at times. It was not focused at times, and it was bad at times. But overall, they pulled it together and got a win, and that's a very hard thing in this league sometimes. Ask Tennessee or Alabama or Arkansas or anybody else, and it's a tough thing to do. But all right, let's get back on track. So Mississippi State, not the best, but you got the win on the road. You come home and now you play the red hot, per some people, LSU Tigers. Now, LSU had a very, very good win this past weekend against Arkansas. In Arkansas, 34-10. I don't think that Taylon Green or Jaquindon Jackson, especially Jaquindon Jackson, he got hurt in the game and was not, couldn't go the rest of the game. But I think Taylon Green was limited with his legs. In Arkansas, I think they had some guys out on the O line, which was very, very apparent. They could not block LSU at all. Taylor Green, typically a very good runner, was couldn't move as well and make plays through the air like he did against us and some other teams. But credit to LSU, they won the turnover battle 3-0. They protected the football. They gave Nussmeier all day to throw. But I think people watch that game like, oh, like LSU's got it figured out. They're clicking, they're cooking, this, that, the other. Well, just last week, the week prior to that, they were kind of a mess against Ole Miss. I know they won the game, but Ole Miss and LSU, both of them played pretty sloppy for a lot of that game. Ole Miss kind of gave it away at certain points in that game, and definitely should have won on the road in Tiger Stadium, and they couldn't get it done. Credit to LSU, they pulled it out. They made plays when it mattered, but it's kind of an inverse of A&M. Like A&M throttles Missouri at home, plays sloppy for a lot of the game in Starkville, wins, and now we're like, oh, well, maybe we're not as good as we thought we were. Well, then LSU struggles a lot of the game, pulls out a win against Ole Miss at home, then goes and plays a great game at Arkansas, and it's like now it's like, oh, they're ascending, we're not, and I don't agree with that at all. So, as far as the matchups on this go, let's talk about their offense, because I think that is the biggest factor for this game. Secondary is it's a weakness. Well, I shouldn't say that. It can be exploited against a team like LSU that has those kind of receivers and a really good quarterback. So they have a good offensive line. It's such a strange conundrum because I watch them play and I'm like, okay, they're not that great, but Nussmeier never gets sacked. Like he doesn't get pressured a ton. Like he's only been pressured a lot in 2 games. That was, I guess the 2 good defensive lines he played in South Carolina and Ole Miss. But he's been sacked 1 time all year. He's very, very good at getting out of the pocket, and even if he doesn't make a play, he's throwing the ball away. He's not taking a big 10-yard sack, 7-yard sack, and or even like I haven't even seen him get called for intentional grounding yet. I'm sure he has, but he's just really good at getting rid of the football. And but for their offensive line, I think they're very highly touted. Like both the tackles are big NFL prospects. The interior is pretty good, but Ole Miss gave them a lot of fits. Landon Jackson gave Will Campbell and Emory Jones a lot of fits. Arkansas doesn't have a great defensive line. Like they don't have 4 Landon Jacksons. A&M's got 7 or 8 guys that can really get after you. So I loved what Elko said today in his press conference. Man, I should have led with this, but people talk about their strength is their offensive line, our strength is our defensive line. Someone brought it up to Elko in the press conference today, and he said, "Yeah, I told our guys there's $10 million on the table right now. If you want that $10 million, you got to go out and take it. You got to go take it from Will Campbell, from Emory Jones, Nick Scort, and Shamar Stewart, Cassius Howell, Shamar Turner. You want to be a first rounder? You're about to play a couple of them. So if you want it, go out and get it." Love that from the head coach. And I think in the preseason I would have said it was a stalemate. I think they probably could have. Back then I would have expected them to be able to block us at a decent clip, but after watching both teams, I give A&M the advantage there. I know it's going to sound homery, but you watch their offensive line, and they're good, but they're not this elite dominant unit that no one can get pressure on because Ole Miss pressured him a lot. Our defensive line is better than Ole Miss's. We're playing them at home. Their O-line had like 17 false starts against Arkansas, against that crowd. You got to imagine when DJ Mike is playing Mo Bamba on 3rd down, they're going to false start. at least once, maybe a lot of maybe several times. So that's something to circle. But I like our matchup there. But and honestly, they have some okay running backs, like some good players, but they're not going to run the ball on us. I don't think. Not the way that the D line's playing, that the linebackers are playing, and that the way that we call our defense. But on the plays where we can't get pressure, or they pick it up, or he's got more time than we would like, we've got to stick with these receivers. And it's not just Lacey. It's Lacey, it's Aaron Anderson, it's C.J. Daniels, it's Mason Taylor, it's Xavier Thomas. They got guys, man. They're not. These guys are not Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, but they're really, really good. Like your typical LSU receivers, and and typical here lately has been first round picks. I don't know if these guys are. I don't think they are, but they're really good receivers, really athletic. They catch the ball really, really well. Contested catches, tough catches. They're a very impressive group. Mason Taylor, very, very talented tight end for them. So that's the big matchup. Like when we can't get home with pressure, can we hang with them? Can we, you know, break up passes, not leave guys, let them have separation and give up big plays. So yeah, that's got to be circled when it comes to matchups. But on the offensive side for A&M, man, I think other outlets, I doubt they cover it this way, but I think A&M's offensive line is one of the best in the conference. And you would not have caught me saying that back in August. I would have settled for middle of the pack. I would have settled for eighth best, seventh best, and maybe four, like in the top five of offensive lines in this conference. Pass pro, running game, they're playing at a very high level. So in the preseason, when I'm looking at these matchups, I'm like, okay, well, the teams that have good offensive lines that can negate our D line, those are games that we're more likely to lose because you know can't like if that's a stalemate, we got to be better elsewhere. You know, can our O line be better than the D lines of these other teams? Which so far they really have been, and LSU's D line is not great. They have a guy, Braden Swinson, number 4 edge rusher. He's extremely good. He's not Will Anderson, but he's very, very good. But the other guys, they're just okay. They're very, very average on the D line. They just are. They had a D tackle go down, the best one go down, Guillory, out for the year. Now the linebackers, at least number 40, Whit Weeks, playing very, very well in the absence of Harold Perkins. Probably a better linebacker than Perkins is, to be quite honest. So he's been all over the place the last 2 weeks. Definitely need to keep an eye on him. But the defense has put up good numbers against Arkansas and Ole Miss, and Ole Miss missed a couple. Like they had in the first quarter they had Trey Harris for like a 70-yard touchdown, and he just dropped it. And there's probably a couple others, but they didn't block well at all in that game. And Dart was not seeing it well. Was under a lot of pressure. Took a lot of sacks. I think our offensive line is a bit better than Ole Miss. I like us in that matchup. I'd give the advantage to A&M, our O line, LSU's D line. The other thing is the big thing here is can we get good Connor? If you get good Connor, the run game opens up for Moss, who we know is a total badass. So if you can come out early, you know, hit a few first downs through the air, it's going to loosen it up. I guarantee you it will. So that's kind of my 2 cents preview on that matchup right now. Okay. Sorry, I had to catch my breath there for a minute. I did an hour with that other podcast with Pigskins and Pageantry, and I rolled through that so easy. And I was like, man, I'm just gonna go right into my own show. I took a little 15-minute break and hit the button, and probably should have taken a longer break because I'm getting I'm getting pretty gassed. But here we are, 45 minutes in. We can close it out with some talk about Texas, talk about Georgia, talk about the other happenings nationwide. I was pretty shocked about A&M in Texas, or sorry, about Georgia and Texas, especially the offensive line because I think it's certainly it's definitely among the best in the country. They're very very experienced. Uh, the one guy that's not has been playing at a very high level, the right tackle Cam Williams, but Kelvin Banks, it's a surefire top 10 pick. Like there's no doubt. The other three guys, well, they had a different right guard in than I'm used to seeing for them, so I'm not sure if that's an injury or what. But Jake Majors is like a fifth or sixth year senior. The left guard, uh, Connors, he's a like a fourth or fifth year guy. They're really good up front, and I'm like, okay, they can probably negate Georgia's defensive line because that's not the Georgia we saw in 2021 when they had, you know, four first round draft picks on the same D line, and just crazy linebackers. And Georgia had some injuries. Like their best linebacker is not playing. He hadn't played since the beginning of the year. Smale Munden. But they still got guys. But I was like, when I was looking at that game, I'm thinking, Texas can probably block them, and Georgia's secondary isn't that great. What I was more intrigued by was the Georgia offense against the Texas defense because so far their defense for Texas had been pretty locked down. I mean and yes they had not played the best offenses. They played a lot of the worst offenses with when you look at Michigan and Oklahoma. But still, like they've been very impressive on that side of the ball. Whereas Carson Beck, they have a good O line, pretty good receivers, good running back. It was it was the opposite. It was Georgia's defensive line wreaked havoc on the Texas O line, and it was Jalen Walker in the first half. He was totally unblockable. It was Michael Williams in the second half. I've never seen Kelvin Banks get beat that often. Every time that I've watched Texas, he blocks out the sun at left tackle, and he could not do it in this game. I mean, they were all over him. They were all over the whole O line. They had Quinn seeing ghosts. He didn't know where to go with the ball. He got sacked a ton, and they ended up, second half they hit a couple big plays, but something I brought up in the offseason, especially with the injury to C.J. Baxter, but they couldn't run the ball at all on Georgia, and then they got to where they couldn't because they were down, four scores. Well, I guess three. It was 23 points, but they went for two and got it. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they got beat as badly as maybe some people think. Like, Texas didn't go in there Georgia didn't go in there and beat them by 40, but the discrepancy of how well the Georgia D line played and how poor they made the Texas O line look, that was pretty jarring. And honestly, if you're an A&M fan, probably gives you some hope because I know that Sark is a very very smart offensive mind. They have so much speed at receiver. We are adequate on the back end, but can be a little shaky. And if our defensive line can get that kind of pressure, that could be a good, situation for us later on in the season. But I'm curious to see what Texas does the rest of the year because, that was the best game Georgia's played all year. Like they have not looked like that since some point last season, and they came to play, put it all together. Props to them. How does Texas respond? Like they played pretty well on defense. Their defensive line was kind of stifled, at least as far as rushing the passer goes, against the Georgia O line. But they go to Vandy this week. They have Florida with DJ Lagway, who is lighting it up in the absence of Graham Mertz. Kentucky, they should win that pretty handily. They go to Arkansas. We'll see about Taylor Green, but I think Texas is probably going to win a lot of games still, and probably just have the one loss when they come to Kyle Field. So we'll see how it goes. But it was it's trust me, I don't like them at all. I think it was great to watch them lose in that fashion, but they're not going anywhere. They're still going to be around and in the playoff mix, and still going to be a handful to deal with on November 30th. But as we look elsewhere, this playoff race is looking very interesting, to say the least. The combination of the playoff and NIL has created in the transfer portal, has created such a situation of parity that this is super freaking fun. And I know, like, A&M fans will try to, when it comes down to the playoff talk, they're like, oh, the SEC we should have 5 or 6 teams, and Indiana hasn't played anybody, and blah, blah, blah. Look, like, I want us to make the playoff as badly as anybody. And the best way for us to do that is by winning our games. If we're 9-3, 10-3, and get left out, like, that sucks. But I kind of get it. I mean, I guess 10-3, not as much if you make the conference title game and lose. But which that seems unlikely that you'd be 10-2 and get in. But as a fan of college football, I think it's fun to see Indiana go 7-0 for the first time in program, for the second time in program history. To see what BYU's doing, to see what Iowa State's doing, which they should have lost that game at UCF, and ended up pulling it out. But this playoff is going to be really, really, really fun, because there's not a doubt, like, as good as Georgia looked against Texas, that's still not a dominant, unbeatable team. Neither is Oregon, neither is Ohio State, and you still have Miami, you have Clemson. God knows who else out of the SEC, with Bama taking a second loss. Ole Miss having 2 losses. Actually, I need to apologize to Tennessee. I said they sucked ass last week. That was unfair. Their defense is incredible. It honestly is an extremely, extremely good defense. One of the best in the country. But when you can't score, when you look inept on offense like they have, I downgrade you a lot in my mind. Like, Oklahoma can't score. U of H can't score. Tennessee, for the conference games, could not score. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe they just suck. Like, maybe Nico's a bad quarterback right now. Maybe their O-line and their receivers aren't any good. The running back's awesome. Sampson, he's an awesome player. But against this, I think Bama looked so disjointed on offense. Milroe had a very, very subpar game. Threw the pick to end it. And Nico made just enough plays in the second half to get the win in Knoxville. And that was a great scene. Now they're right back in it. Now they give Bama a second loss. Tennessee has Georgia still. That should be a pretty, definitely a fun game to watch, with some big stakes for the SEC title race. But now you look at Alabama, who I would have said last week was probably the favorite to get to Atlanta, along with, probably with Texas, and trying to see what Texas would do against Georgia. But now they have 2 conference losses. They still play LSU. LSU could knock them out of the playoff. A 9-3 Alabama this year, they're not making it. I'll tell you right now. You can be conspiracy and like, oh, they'll find a way. No, they will not. If they have 3 losses, which they would certainly miss the conference title game, they are not getting in. Point blank. Period. LSU has a chance to deliver that knockout punch. Missouri might do it this weekend. If Brady Cook is not in the hospital after, which I mean, props to him for literally getting hurt in the first quarter against Auburn, going to the hospital, coming back, suiting up, winning the game for them in the fourth quarter. That was awesome. Mizzou and Bama played this weekend. Mizzou only has one conference loss. I mean, I know we whooped them and it made it look really bad, but they're still technically in this race. They could put Bama out. Bama could put them out. Ole Miss has to play Georgia. Georgia has to play Ole Miss and Tennessee. We have to play LSU in Texas, and the conference race is super, super fun. It's extremely fun that A&M is right in the center of it. And this weekend is a big. It's an absolutely massive game for A&M to see if they're ready to go and take that next step this season and put themselves squarely in the mix for the playoff, in the driver's seat for to make it to Atlanta for the conference title. Can't wait. Huge opportunity. Love to see it. Army, Navy, both undefeated. Love it. Love the troops. Navy plays at Navy hosts Notre Dame this weekend. I don't know what helps A&M. Maybe if Navy beats Notre Dame and they lose to USC, that would probably keep them out. But I think they beat Navy. I mean, I love the story with Navy and Army both. What I don't know is who gets in from the G5. Is it, one loss Boise with a close loss to Oregon, who's number 1 right now, who they should have beaten? They got to get past UNLV this Friday. Watch out for that one. Or is it the American champ, Army and or Navy, who could be 13-0 at that point? Army and Navy are likely to meet in the American conference title game and then play again the following week for the President's Cup. And yeah, that's wild. Army or Navy could be in the playoff this season. I assume one of them and Boise could be in the playoff this season. But you start adding that up. Pitt has not lost. Indiana has not lost. Penn State probably won't lose until they play Ohio State. Oregon won't lose until they, maybe the conference title. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's 4 from the SEC that can make it in. I think 4 is probably the right number. Good luck guessing who it's going to be because I have no idea. But what a fun year for this sport. Everyone loves 2007 and talking about that year and how crazy it was. I don't think we're quite there, but man, with a 12-team playoff, you get give me A&M versus Penn State, or Clemson at Indiana, or Georgia going to or hosting Boise State and a great running back with Ashton Genty. I mean, it's honestly, it's fun. Give me Miami and Texas, and see if they can recreate the Cotton Bowl from back in the day. But yeah, it's fun. A&M doing big things, has a prime opportunity this Saturday to make a statement. So we'll get out of here for today. But as a reminder, check out Pigskin and Pageantry was on there earlier tonight, and I will be on Ghost and Friends tomorrow. That will be live if you want to catch it live on Twitter and YouTube. So thanks again for all your support, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on some other platforms, and be back here on Wednesday to break down A&M and LSU, the blackout game at Kyle Field. Thanks so much for the support and for tagging along. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.